Go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, so hello everybody, and this was to welcome you to the Summer Institute's off-ed talks for 2020. I am Bruce Weir from the Department of Biostatistics at the University of Washington, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Christopher Balakrishnan, who's our speaker today. Chris is an associate professor in the Department of Biology at East Carolina University. His research is aimed at understanding how genes and environment interact to generate biodiversity. Has a wide-ranging interest in that framework, and his work is mainly with birds. At the moment, Chris is on a 2-year rotation at the National Science Foundation, and he's a program director there in the Evolutionary Processes Cluster of the Division of Environmental Biology. So, Chris, I apologize for not being on the Zoom. I don't know what's happened, but we'll work that out. Anyway, I'm very pleased you could join us, both because of your thoughts and of your work and for your support of the Summer Institute. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Bruce. It's really great to be here representing the National Science Foundation. And so what I'm going to try to do to you today is provide a quick overview. And the hope is that this will really give you a feeling for the structure of the NSF for your careers going forward. And there's really potentially a lot of different ways that the NSF could be to you. I mean, I think people think of the NSF as an agency that funds science, and that's certainly what we do. But it's a lot broader than that. It's a place where you could seek employment directly. We have partnerships with private companies through various programs. There's a lot of educational initiatives. There's a lot of opportunities for teachers. And so going forward, whatever path your career takes, if it's in STEM broadly, there may be some relevant programs for you at NSF. And so I'm not really going to try to introduce everything because this is a short amount of time and there's a lot to cover. But I wanted to get you in a position maybe where you all are comfortable reaching out to folks like me at NSF, asking questions and finding the information that you need and programs that are relevant to you. And so first and foremost, to sort of continue Bruce's introduction, I'm a rotating program officer at NSF, and what that means is that I'm here on a short stint. My normal job is as a professor, and NSF is kind of unusual in this way in that roughly half of our staff are in this rotating kind of position, this temporary kind of position. And the goal there is to get direct feedback from the research community on what's interesting in science and what we should be trying to do programmatically. And that's paired with people who are permanent staff at NSF to provide a longer term perspective. So I've only been at NSF a year. I'm still learning my way around, but I'm hopeful to try to introduce you to what I've learned and just some of the basics. If you do have questions, you can, I'm not sure how much time we'll have for that. You can throw them in the chat and I'll see if there's time at the end for answering them.
We'll try to go to about 11:25, 11:30, and I'll look at the chat and see if I can bring up some of the questions towards the end of your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So just for a broad scale overview of what things look like kind of financially at the NSF, this is this is from a couple of years ago, that the total budget of our organization is about $8 billion, and that's one of the things we're really proud of, is that basically all of that money goes back to the community and to support, as I mentioned, research and education related activities. And so that involves supporting a lot of researchers and students across science disciplines. Also, as I mentioned, we have some programs to seed public-private partnerships, and of course, we're very proud of our and always highlight our 236 NSF-funded Nobel Prize winners. Every year, we're involved in evaluating about 50,000 proposals from the community, and so that's the bulk of the work that I'm involved in as a program officer. Uh, uh, for context again, NSF, our primary mission is funding basic science research and education, and that contrasts a bit with one of our other major science funding agencies that you might know about, the National Institutes of Health, which has a more directly biomedical focus. And so we include a diversity of scientific fields, physics, math, all of STEM, as I mentioned, except really that biomedical component that is the focus of NIH. But so that's sort of the broad overview. In terms of kind of what we're trying to do going forward, over the last few years, there's been an effort to come up with sort of 10 big ideas. And some of these are sort of more research focused, which is highlighted on the top of this slide. And at the bottom, it's more maybe infrastructure or process focused. And that's another way to think about how NSF operates. We have PI driven, researcher driven, specific question driven projects like like something that you might submit as if in your own lab. And then we also support some of the basic science infrastructure in the United States. And so these represent 10 major initiatives that are the focus of NSF going forward. This is the sort of nuts and bolts organization here, and I highlight this really to point out again the diversity of topics that NSF supports. And so I'm based over here in the Directorate for Biological Sciences, but our other directorates include Directorate for Computer Science and Engineering, Education and Human Resources, engineering, geosciences, mathematical and physical sciences, and social, behavioral, and economic sciences. And this is important I think, to the Summer Institute for Statistical Genetics. This effort that you're involved in was supported by the NSF, and it was actually supported by multiple different directorates within NSF because of the broad reach that this program has. And so, not only do I think you all might find relevancy in all of these different directorates, but more broadly, the field that you're kind of learning about connects among all of these. And so there's a really big effort at NSF to have science that connects these disciplines. And in a lot of ways, the statistical methods you're learning and the techniques are one of the sort of mechanisms that can connect among these different disciplines, because the underlying math can bring us together in that way. And so that's why the Summer Institute has been able to find support from diverse branches of NSF. And so some of you might be from more biological backgrounds, and some of you might be from more computer science backgrounds or more social science backgrounds, potentially, or even engineering backgrounds. But hopefully you can see the connections among you through the coursework you're taking and through the offerings at NSF. But as I mentioned, I'm based in the Directorate for Biological Sciences, and maybe that is the home for most of you. I'm not sure, but that would be my guess. And so I wanted to just kind of provide a zoom in even further into how we break down research at NSF. And so if you're searching for a program to support your research within biology, these are the four main divisions that you might think of looking at. So I'm a program officer here in the middle in the Division of Environmental Biology, or DEB, which funds primarily ecology and evolutionary biology research. So I'm in that evolutionary processes cluster. In addition to that, we have integrative organismal systems that has a lot of the behavior, development, physiology, neuroscience, and molecular biology. And sort of overarching all of this is that the Division of Biological Infrastructure, which supports things like postdoc fellowships, which might be relevant to many of you. In addition to postdoc fellowships, they're involved in a lot of support for computational infrastructure, equipment infrastructure. And so it's sort of a different kind of division within biology in that it does have this infrastructure focus. And so another way to sort of visualize how the biology community at NSF breaks down is something like this. So we like to span biological sciences from the molecular level to the ecosystem and biosphere level, and our different divisions kind of span this with obvious overlaps. And the overlaps are important because what we have at NSF and perhaps in any department you might be involved in, we have a tendency to form these sort of silos between molecular biologists, medical school biologists, ecologists, and at NSF we have these silos too that are sort of formed by our structure, but we do also have mechanisms to break down those structures, and we're really trying to do that by funding science and scientists who do work that spans these sort of categories, which, as this figure shows, they clearly overlap. Back up, just because given that I understand that a lot of you are graduate students, and so probably the NSF program that you're most familiar with potentially is the Graduate Research Fellowship Program. And that is a unique program that is actually outside of all of these directorates and spans all of these directorates. And so that is often people's first entry into NSF, but it's good to start thinking about where within these other directorates your research really fits. And so getting to understand NSF is kind of is often intimidating, and I'm really, one of my goals is to try to remove that barrier, and that is what we've been doing as an organization as well. And so we have a number of mechanisms that I want to highlight for us to kind of reach out to the community. And I suggest this is a good way for you all to start to keep track of opportunities at NSF, how NSF grant submission processes work, and so forth. So within DEB, we have a blog that is really full of useful information and answers to questions that researchers often have, researchers at all levels. And so this is just an example of, blog posts that have been in the past about just, this one is about the nuts and bolts of how you write a proposal. This is about undergraduate and graduate opportunities at NSF. This is just, again, back to nuts and bolts about how a specific grant submission website works, summer meetings. And so there's all kinds of information. So I'd encourage you to subscribe to this blog. And if you're not so much an environmental biology person, some of the other divisions within bio also have resources like this. Though I'm biased and I think ours is the best. Just kidding. We also talk about panel service. So how do you get involved in the review process itself? And we also have features on some of us, like rotating program officers. Like here we've highlighted Matt Olson from Texas Tech. And so you can come learn about each of us and maybe what we're all about.
Okay, Chris, we have about 1 minute, and
Yep.
There was one question that came up, which is, what are some of the ways that PhD students who already have a master's can approach NSF for funding? I think you talked about some of that. And also, I'm going to allow Bruce to get in here and see what he's got to say as well. Go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you, Sandra. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Bruce. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, Chris. So I apologize for that. So I got the last few slides, so that was great. So let me just, I don't see the questions. Okay.
So I got one just there, and let me just finish up this one more slide, and then maybe I'll answer that question. And so this is just to say that we have a number of outreach mechanisms to reach out to you. But also, this could be my most important take-home message, that as you move through the ranks, you know, we're very friendly people. And so my main job is really to communicate with the scientific community. So you're more than welcome and encouraged to email us with questions you have as you try to navigate through NSF. And this is a lot of people are very hesitant to do this. It's just like, you know, just like office hours in your college classrooms. Like, a lot of people are very hesitant to go bug their professors, but their professors are often sitting there really wanting to talk directly to students. The same thing is true with program officers. I mean, we really want researchers to contact us, and our role is to help you find appropriate funding for your work. All right, so thank you very much. I think the one question I had was about with master's degrees, what sort of funding opportunities are there? That so that I think is for graduate level funding, right? The primary opportunity is still the GRFP. So if you have exceeded your GRFP availability, then the best way to get funding directly, the best way to get funding is in collaboration with your PhD advisor. So some of you may know we used to have dissertation improvement grants, and those are not a thing anymore. And the primary way we fund graduate students is through larger grants.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have other questions there? I don't see any.
I believe so.
Yeah, I don't see the chat questions.
Did you say there was another question or not?
No, there isn't.
Okay,
there was just the one.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and apologies again, but I'm glad you were able to join us, and we've certainly captured you, and we'll make sure that all the attendees at the institutes get a chance to see and to hear what you said. So thank you, Chris, and thank you everybody else for attending. And
thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you, Sandra.